Okay, I want you to picture the most powerful empire you can possibly imagine. We're talking gleaming armor, endless wealth, and weapons of just terrifying destruction. Got it? Now, picture the people they're trying to conquer. They're outgunned, they're starving, they're completely desperate, and they are backed right into a corner. Now, the script of history seems pretty much written in stone here, right? Goliath crushes David. But what happens when the underdog rips up that script? Welcome to today's explainer, the David versus Goliath playbook. Today, we are diving deep into the visceral, bloody, and shockingly effective history of asymmetric warfare. So here's the massive question we really need to figure out. How exactly do starving peasants defeat the greatest empires on Earth? That is the central mystery of our explainer. Because we aren't just looking at boring dates on a map today, we're looking at the raw, terrifying reality of ordinary people being pushed to the absolute brink, deciding to fight back against invincible titans, and somehow actually winning. Section 1, Shadows in the Fog, the Battle of a Mouse.
All right, put yourself there. It's dawn in the 2nd century BC. There's this thick, freezing fog clinging to the mud. Inside a massive, heavily fortified camp, the soldiers of the mighty Seleucid Empire are fast asleep. Then, out of nowhere, the deafening blare of trumpets just cuts right through the mist. Out of the shadows charge just 3,000 light infantry. It's Judas Maccabeus and his rebel force, and they are armed with nothing but basic swords and pure adrenaline. They didn't march out nicely to trade volleys. No, they charged screaming into that unready enemy, inducing such absolute sheer panic that they completely shattered the Imperial army.
Moving on to Section 2, the Illusion of Supremacy, the Great Equalizer. You see, this stunning mismatch of power isn't a one-off. It repeats constantly throughout history. We call it asymmetric warfare. Formally, that's combat where weaker actors exploit an opponent's vulnerabilities through indirect, unconventional, and drawn-out methods. But really, this is the ultimate historical equalizer. It is the bloody, desperate art of taking an enemy's overwhelming technological might and turning it right back against them. Think of it like this. On one side, you have symmetrical war. That's your gleaming, well-fed regular armies lining up for these massive, quote-unquote, honorable battles. But on the other side, you have asymmetrical war. That's insurgency, deception, and psychological terror. It's the grueling, miserable reality of partisans fighting in the mud, who know for a fact that fighting fair means certain death. And believe it or not, modern militaries are literally still studying these ancient bloodbaths. Take the year 9 AD, for example. The Germanic chieftain Arminius managed to lure 3 elite Roman legions, which was basically the pinnacle of military technology at the time, straight into the dark, suffocating swamps of the Teutoburg forest. The Romans couldn't form their famous battle lines, so trapped in the freezing rain and deep mud, the underdogs absolutely slaughtered them. It's basically a ghost story that still haunts military strategists today.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Strategy of Exhaustion, the American Revolution.
We kind of have this habit of picturing the Revolutionary War as this glorious march to freedom, right? Well, actually, the reality was a complete logistical nightmare designed specifically to slowly break the back of the British Empire. Look at this breakdown. The British had to supply a massive army across a 3,000-mile ocean. It took anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks just for orders to arrive. Meanwhile, the Americans, they fought right in their familiar home wilderness. But more importantly, the British relied heavily on Hessian mercenaries who were just there fighting for a paycheck. The Americans were rugged, freezing and starving, sure, but they possessed this profound emotional fire, which is an absolute nightmare for any occupying army to deal with.
But man, that emotional fire came at an unimaginable cost. 10. Just think about that number for a second. For every 1 American soldier killed in combat during the Revolution, 10 died of disease. 10! This statistic represents the sheer grinding misery of the camps. We're talking starvation, smallpox, freezing winters. They weren't just fighting the redcoats out there, they were literally fighting to survive their own environment.
Section 4, Napoleon's Spanish Ulcer, the birth of the guerrilla. Now jump forward to the Spanish Peninsular War. Here, the misery wasn't just a byproduct, it was entirely intentional. The Spanish resistance unleashed relentless, terrifying ambushes. They brutally tortured prisoners, and they would literally display the severed heads of collaborators as a warning to anyone else. The French occupying troops lived in such constant, paralyzing fear of the civilian population around them that they actually hid their own uniforms. Imagine being part of the most powerful army in all of Europe, but you're so terrified of the starving peasants around you that you disguise yourself in civilian clothes just to safely walk down the street. This relentless, bleeding drain on resources slowly but surely destroyed Napoleon's imperial ambitions in Spain. He famously, and very bitterly, called this whole nightmare his Spanish ulcer. And you know what's wild? From this exact conflict, the world got a brand new word. The Spanish called their small, vicious bands of fighters guerrillas, which quite literally translates to little war. Section 5. Breaking the imperial will. Targeting the mind. So what are these little wars actually trying to achieve? Well, it brings us to a terrifying realization for any superpower. The true target, it actually isn't the army. In asymmetric wars, the underdog doesn't need to win a single conventional battle. No way. They can lose absolutely every major firefight, have their cities completely burned, their camps destroyed, and yet still somehow win the war. How? Because the real target is the national will of the empire. You see, powerful, modern, wealthy societies have a notoriously low tolerance for long wars. They expect quick, decisive, high-tech victories, right? When casualties keep mounting year after year and the economic burden just grows without any end in sight, the psychology of the home front begins to crack.
And when public support crumbles, the empire withdraws. It's really that simple. Victory comes exclusively through a strategy of deceleration. You just have to slow the whole war down. You bleed the giant, step by step, day by brutal day, until their political and public support completely collapses under the massive weight of a war that seemingly has no end.
This entire grand strategy is anchored in a chillingly accurate understanding of human emotion. Just listen to this historical quote from North Vietnamese leader Ho Chi Minh. They will kill many of us, and we will kill a few of them, and they will tire first. It is dark, it is ruthless, and historically speaking, it is profoundly true. Finally, Section 6, the price of defiance, the human cost. Because actually executing this playbook against a global superpower isn't just some academic game. Success requires an unimaginable tolerance for misery. Think about it. The empire fights for a political objective. The underdog is fighting for their very life. And to win, they absolutely must be willing to endure starvation, devastating diseases, the burning of their homes, and just staggering casualties. They literally have to be willing to walk through hell simply to outlast the enemy. Which brings me to the final thought I really want to leave you with today. Is the ultimate price of freedom worth the devastating human cost of defiance? When we look back at the blood spilled by ordinary people, from the muddy, freezing swamps of the Teutoburg Forest to the disease-ridden camps of Valley Forge, we really have to ponder that heavy cost. The playbook absolutely works. The giant can fall. But the price paid by the David down in the dirt is something we must never, ever forget. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this gave you a whole new perspective on how history's most impossible wars are actually won.